Jay Martinez with Fight Hub TV here with the legendary Jim Lampley. Jim, it's going to be an amazing weekend here in New York. We're just kicking off the press conference. Haney Garcia, it's a lot of talks going around, how Ryan is doing mentally. What do you expect come fight night from both fighters?
Well, regardless of their mental approach and circumstances going into the fight, I'm focused from the beginning on the style confrontation. Devin Haney's a boxer, a technical boxer with technical boxing skills. Ryan Garcia, not that dramatically further down the scale in terms of technical skill, but enough down the scale that I think his success in the fight depends to a large degree on whether he can land a left hook. And I just conducted an interview with Ryan Garcia a short time ago in which he and I agreed that it's very important for him to, at some point, land a left hook and disrupt Haney's rhythm and approach.
Derek James, his trainer at the moment for Ryan Garcia, always says, one time I asked him, what do you do for a fighter, to prepare for another fighter? He says, you always take the good thing away from them, because if you take the good, they don't know what to do. So if Haney goes into this fight and tries to not, be in that radar for that left hook, what else could Ryan do to beat him? Use a jab a little bit more, work the body. What do you think?
Well, I think the more it's a firefight, the better it is for Garcia. And that's going to involve trying to hit Haney when he doesn't expect to be hit, with shots with which he doesn't expect to be hit. So if you were betting the percentages and you were looking for what's most likely to happen in the fight, I think what's most likely to happen in the fight is that the better boxer outboxes the lesser of the two boxers. And conventional wisdom is that means a Haney victory that sends him on toward perhaps bigger identity in the sport.
Mr. Lampley, adding to what Jay was saying earlier about the build-up to this fight, that to me it seems like a very non-traditional build-up. There's a lot of animosity, but not just that, some of the erratic talking of, Ryan Garcia. Do you think that's good for boxing, or is it a negative?
Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. The old traditions are out the window. The world in which I lived, one major purveyor of fights, HBO, challenged a lot of the time by Showtime, that world is gone. And now we have a more event by event rhythm and momentum for the sport. And you have people going not through conventional media to get attention, but developing their own audiences via social media. Ryan Garcia is a perfect example of all that. So the world in which I lived is gone. And therefore, I'm commenting speculatively on a world which I, to some degree, don't understand. I don't have a social media presence. I don't read or consume social media on a daily basis. What Ryan Garcia does amounts to strange alchemy from my perspective, but it's exactly what a large percentage of the audience wants and feasts upon. So a world of discovery. We go forward and see what happens next. In the world in which I lived, somebody with a more conventional, measured, direct approach like Devin Haney has the advantage.
To your point, Mr. Lampley, it's a different world, especially in boxing as well. It feels like to me that New York is a mecca of boxing. However, we haven't seen mega fights of this magnitude in New York in some time. Obviously for you, how important is this fight for New York and being in beautiful Brooklyn, but also, in your opinion, what is your favorite New York City fight of all time, if you have one?
Well, we're going to find out. I think a logical question about this fight is, one fighter was raised in the Bay Area, the other fighter is from Victorville in the desert of California. One fighter comes from a very traditional boxing marketplace, the African American community. The other comes from the constantly growing marketplace of Latino Americans, et cetera, et cetera. Why is this fight in New York? Why is this fight in Brooklyn? Some people have suggested to me that the fight is in Brooklyn because Canelo Alvarez is still a market controller within the sport, and he didn't want a fight to be taking place on or near the West Coast, which would interfere with the marketability of his fight on May 4. If that's the reason, more power to Canelo until he loses one of those matchups. So I am not clear on what's the advantage for the fighters or for the promoters in being in New York. And it remains to be seen how many people are going to show up in Barclays Center tomorrow night.
You know, to that point, Canelo to me seems like still the face of boxing, the cash cow. You know, he brings in all the attention, eyes. Oscar said something the other day, and I want to get your thoughts on it, that the winner of this fight becomes not only the face of boxing, but specifically the next face of American boxing. Do you believe that to be the case?
To me, Terrence Crawford is still pound for pound number one. Canelo is dollar for dollar number one. Canelo has the largest monetary following, and Terrence Crawford is the fighter with the best record and the most competitive success. And then, of course, you have this other entirely different colony of heavyweights in Great Britain who are increasingly fighting their fights in Saudi Arabia. So in a constantly diversifying world governed by new market forces that never existed during my career, most especially social media, I don't know that I'm an expert on what's going to happen next. I only know that in the heavyweight division, the action comes from Great Britain and seems to take place in Saudi Arabia. At the top of the sport where Canelo exists, the action is how long can he keep winning and winning on certain pay-per-view outlets. And then at the pound-for-pound level, what happens with Crawford and the other people who might be in position to fight him?
You know, while we're on the same topic of, speaking of Canelo, that fight's coming up against Munguia. I'm sure a lot of people ask you for your breakdown. What do you think of that fight? Munguia looked better with Freddie Roach this time, actually using more hip movement, not going backwards like previously with the direction there, Eric Morales. So what kind of fight are we expecting with Canelo and a young, hungry Jaime Munguia come May 4th, if I'm not mistaken, May 4th?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Canelo expects that he's going to hit Munguia more and more easily than Munguia can hit him, and that he's ultimately going to be disposing of a lesser opponent. I'm sure that Munguia and the people with whom he's been working believe that he has improved enough and added enough game over the course of the past few years, since the time when I was curating his career from a blow-by-blow perspective on HBO, that he can avoid the incoming and do what has been very hard for people to do, which is hurt Canelo. I think Canelo's greatest asset, or at least one of them, is his chin. And if you have a strong chin, then you have the right platform for beginning to disassemble Munguia, because he's in there to hurt you. He's in there to find your chin and try to get you out of there. That's his game. Canelo is reaching the age at which you wonder, all right, is that chin still going to be impregnable? So it's a good fight. Let's find out whether Munguia has advanced and gained enough that he can use his skill and his power punching to put Canelo in trouble, or is the more conventional likelihood that Canelo once again outclasses a lesser opponent going to take place?
Last one for me. I know there's a saying that this weekend you're going to be back on the co-host, the exclusive viewer chat for the pay-per-view.com. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I do live chat during the fight on ppv.com. I'll be working with Lance Pugmire of the Los Angeles Times. It's a new way of communicating about fights. I don't have to talk. I don't have to be on camera. I just type text into a computer, and viewers can type text right back at me. And it's a way of continuing to be a part of the conversation of boxing without having to put on makeup and do on cameras.
Last one from me, Mr. Lampley. You mentioned Saudi Arabia. Obviously here in the United States for a long time, it's probably still the mecca of boxing have been Vegas, New York, California to a degree, sometimes Texas. Do you feel from the small sample size that Saudi Arabia has provided to us that it's clear that that might be one of the emerging meccas of boxing moving forward?
The only reason people are fighting in Saudi Arabia is money. They're not fighting in Saudi Arabia because of public interest from a groundswell of a large number of spectators who can gain access to the event. That's not what it's all about. Even if that happens, that's not what it's all about. So the bottom line is it's an elitist approach to continued development in the sport. And my instinct as an old guy is to say, this is not the world's best way to go. But I certainly understand why promoters and fighters are verging toward the opportunity to make bigger dollars in a place where bigger dollars exist.
Appreciate that, Mr. Lampley.
Thank you so much for your time.
My
Thank you,
privilege.
thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe for more videos of your favorite fighters over here on Fight Up TV, and give us a follow online as well at Fight Up TV on Twitter and on Instagram. We appreciate it, guys.